here. It's actually covered with what's called a turbine bypass. The idea there is that when the jet's flying and the engine's pulling in air, just like an engine on a full-scale jet, the air comes in this air scoop here, and this keeps the air directed so that the engine gets all the air that it wants. And of course the exhaust goes out the back here, and if you look in the back you can see the end of a tailpipe there. It's a double-walled stainless steel tailpipe. That contains the jet exhaust. It's double-walled so that while the inner wall gets really hot, there's very little conductive path to the outer wall, so it shields the inside of the fuselage from the exhaust. That exhaust, when this engine's running full throttle, is about 1400 degrees. And this fuselage here is fiberglass, so if that tailpipe weren't there to contain the exhaust, it would literally just melt the whole back end of the jet. So these are the main fuel tanks right here. They're made of Kevlar. The idea behind that is, of course, Kevlar is what they make bulletproof vests out of. If the jet were to crash, the idea is to try to contain that fuel and minimize the risk of an explosion. The jet carries more than a gallon of fuel on board with it. When it's fully fueled, it weighs right at 40 pounds. So it's pretty heavy when it takes off, but there's about 8 pounds of fuel there, so by the time it lands, it's down in the low 30s of pounds. This little box right here is probably the most important piece of this jet. It's called the ECU, which stands for Electronic Control Unit. It's a small computer that controls everything that this engine does back here. It controls the startup, the shutdown, the running, and essentially, when I move the left stick on the radio to run the throttle up and down, it's just commanding this guy to increase or decrease the voltage to the fuel pump, which of course increases or decreases the amount of fuel going to the engine, and that makes it go faster or lets it slow down. There are 3 big batteries in this jet. 2 of them are right here. This powers the receiver and the servos. These are lithium polymer batteries, very high energy density. These are voltage regulators right here that knocks the voltage down from 7.4 volts to about 6 volts, which is what we want to feed into the receiver. And then there's one more fairly large battery back here. This one runs the engine and the engine electronics. And that, the landing gear there is designed to look and operate just like landing gear on a real F-16. It's pretty complex, as you can see. It's pneumatically operated, which means it's operated by pressurized air. It has brakes as well. The electrical lead for the ailerons. And slide these 2 posts in here. That's what holds the wing on. It's more than enough. It's like the elevator's working here. Rudder's working. The ailerons are working. Watch the landing gear and the gear doors here. This is called a taxi tank. We put it on the vent so when we're fueling, once it's full, it starts overflowing, and that's how we know it's full. This prevents the fuel from getting out, seeping in the ground and hurting the environment. You let it cool down just a bit, then push this switch down, and the engine just cut off. Now for about 2 minutes, you'll hear a little electric starter motor going. It's pulling air through the turbine so it can cool down.